Hello and good morning. My name is Rob Snyder. Thank you all for being here. This is the talk that I wish somebody had come and given me like 10 years ago, just like beat it into me. And so we're gonna talk about idea detraction. My background is I came into startups. I started at McKinsey, consulting firm you may have heard of. Then I went to Harvard Business School. I thought I was really smart. And so I was like, cool, how hard can startups be? It turns out they can be very hard. So I raised a lot of money. With MVP built, I had done all of these discovery interviews. We had happy design partners who were using it daily. And then I spent the next 2 years just hitting my head against the wall repeatedly, trying to sell, didn't work. Bunch of pivots. This says 7, might have been 10, who knows. And then it was even weirder because right after that, we went 0 to 4 million ARR in the next 2 years. And for me, you would think, okay, cool, it finally worked. That's great. It was worse because I didn't understand why it worked. It made no sense to me. And so that's kind of where I found myself. It was a really hard point. And so now what I'm trying to do is I just realized I don't understand 0 to 1. I don't understand how startups work. So I'm just going to do that a bunch of times. And so I'm repeating it a bunch of times to see how it works. What I've done since then is I've done somewhere between 25 and 40 0 to 1 million ARR journeys as a founder and advisor, mostly B2B, but some B2C as well. I also am, the fastest that I've worked with has gone 0 to 20 million ARR in 18 months, which is interesting to see. I am bootstrapping a startup myself, as we heard here, so just trying to understand this. And I am a fellow at Harvard that's teaching this. I have a book coming out next year on this as well. And so what I've found is that we're generally taught a lot of things about startups, and most of them are kind of counterproductive, which I wish somebody had told me a while ago. What I've found is that there's a lot of advice out there. You see a bunch online, you see a bunch, anywhere you go, there's tons of books, and a lot of this advice sounds right, makes a lot of sense. It should work, it could work, and then you put it into practice and it kind of doesn't work. There's a lot of stuff like, community, build community. There's stuff like, figure out inbound. All this stuff sounds right, makes sense, and then it usually doesn't work. And so what I've been looking for is a subset of all of this startup advice that would be weird if it didn't work. This is an interesting concept, but that's what I'm going to try to dig into today. Like, what approach to startups not just could possibly work, but what approach would be weird if it didn't work? And so the question that I ask you, and I ask myself, is how would you approach startups, not if you kind of want to succeed, if you kind of want to grow, but how would you approach startups if your life literally depended on your startup succeeding? You would do a couple things differently, I'm pretty sure. You would approach ideas differently, and you would approach validation differently as well. So I'll walk through both of these things today. How would you think about ideas differently, and how would you think about validation differently? And hopefully you come out away with this with something you can start implementing right now. And so I have to include this slide because every time I give this talk, or some version of this talk, there's something in the back of my mind as I listen to it, in the back of everyone's mind is this might make sense for those other people, but does this make sense for me? And so I'm just gonna say, yes, it applies to you. Cool. Part 1 is ideas. So, what we're often taught is to go do a ton of discovery interviews. Has anyone here heard to do discovery interviews? Is that a common thing? Yes, seeing some hands. Very common thing. If your life depended on it, would you find ideas by doing discovery interviews? Of course you wouldn't. That's ridiculous. One of my friends from HBS graduated, again, Harvard Business School, graduated, could get any job in the world, and goes and gets a job as a paramedic making $15 an hour. In doing the work firsthand, he found a startup idea. The principle here is that firsthand experience, like doing the job with potential customers, is infinitely better than just interviewing people. I've done 100 interviews before. You learn a lot of things that sound useful, but aren't actually useful. Secondhand experience, interviews and whatnot, is what I call LARPing. I don't know if you know what LARPing is. Look it up, it's funny. And so, next part here is like, okay, what kind of idea would you bet your life on? Would you bet your life on, I don't know, cursor for dentists, or I don't know, something that solves a sales leader's pain points? What I've found, there's a shape of an idea that I would bet my life on. If I'm taking the bet my life on frame here, I believe this person would be weird not to buy this thing, right? Like I'm making a bet on demand that somebody actually will rip the product out of my hands, not supply the product itself. And so what I've found is this is a hard thing to get our minds around. This is a Trello board. I want to give you all a superpower for a second here. And the superpower is X-ray vision, but a really weird kind of X-ray vision, where you can look at anybody and see exactly what's on their to-do list right now. Like what's in their backlog and what are they prioritizing today? What are they going to do today? If you know what that is, and you look at a potential customer, like they, most of the time, would be weird to buy your product given what's on their to-do list. They'd be kind of crazy to buy your product given what's on their to-do list. And so what we're looking for is somebody who has something on their to-do list that they are trying to accomplish right now, but their existing options, whether that's hiring somebody, whether that's using their existing tools, like whatever it is, their existing options are not good enough. They are struggling, they are blocked, such that if you offer them something, they will rip the product out of your hands with no convincing necessary, like none of that necessary. And so that's the structure of an idea. What I want to convey is anybody who is not in that situation would be insane to buy your product. And this is true even if they have pain points. We're told to look for pain points. Life is a series of pain points we do nothing about. Like, I have so many pain points throughout my day. I don't buy things based on them, even when their hair on fire. I'm good at avoiding those. This is true even if we can offer ROI, offer a ton of value. Again, if it's not something that's on their to-do list that they are blocked from, they'd be crazy to buy it because the ROI is irrelevant to them. Even if you think they should want it, right? Like I've pitched a ton of things before that I thought people should want. It made total sense. And they would nod and they'd say, wow, this is really valuable. And then they would ghost me and life sucked. And so what I've come up with is the pull framework for ideas. This is a way to articulate who would be weird not to buy our products. 4 components. This is coming out in the book, early access for all of you. I see a bunch of people taking pictures. That's really exciting. So there is a project on a person's to-do list that they can't not do. It is their number one priority right now. They have a list of options they consider, but those options have limitations. The options are not good enough. This is a framework into which you can put ideas. We'll do an example. This is an example of me with using Lovable. So when I used Lovable, it was because I had something on my to-do list. I had to ship a new website ASAP. And it was really awkward because I had just gotten off of a sales call and they said, this is great. Can you send me your website? I didn't have a website at that point. And so that project was the number one thing on my to-do list at that point. Okay, cool. I considered using a traditional website builder, but I didn't want to hate myself. And I don't like building websites. And so in this situation, I ripped the product essentially out of Lovable's hands. And so the concept here is that the product idea is downstream of this concept of pull. At that point, Lovable could have said, hey, yeah, cool, we offer something that helps founders build websites super fast, right? That's a high-level description of what Lovable does. That's great. But that's downstream of pull. Now, they could have said at this point, the way we do this is we have trained AI to build websites super fast. Or they could have said, the way we've done this is we have a hamster named Ralph who builds websites very quickly. I wouldn't have cared. I just wanted the website super fast. And so when you know what pull is, that's really interesting because what you can offer, for example, as an MVP is a service or something like that you can start selling today and delivering today, getting paid for today, and customers are happy with something that is a janky service run by a hamster named Ralph. Cool, okay, so that was the product piece, or the ideas piece. Let's talk about validation. Just a PSA. So, if your life depended on your startup working, would you rely on anything other than one-on-one sales for validation? Like think about, I don't know, you put a website up, hope some people come inbound to it. You watch the traffic analytics and like nothing happened. No, you would, if you're betting your life on your startup, you would do one-on-one sales to figure out how to sell it, what it is, and you would want to look into people's eyes as they tell you it's not relevant to them versus just seeing the website traffic and guessing, right? And so, I've found that in that big box of things that could work, self-serve, hoping to go viral, there's a ton of tactics there. But if we're just gonna focus on like what would be weird not to work, that's one-to-one sales. I forgot I left that slide in. Never mind. I used to hate sales, to be clear. I absolutely could not stand it. It felt gross to me. And so what I found is I had to change the way I thought about sales to actually enjoy it. Then my goal is to schedule 5 to 10 calls minimum per week with potential customers and do that every single week as my learning engine. Then we'll talk through a structure for these calls, see if people have pull in these calls. If they have pull, they will try to buy without much convincing or persuading. And then finally, debug until it works. So let's talk through all of this. Again, I used to be terrified of sales. I hated doing cold calls. I hated doing demos. What I found is I had to change the way I was thinking about it. I used to think about sales as the way a deal is gonna happen is if I convince you that you should want some shit you don't want. And like, that's not how sales actually works. How I now think about sales is you're going to buy from me if you have this project on your to-do list, you don't have good options, and my product fits. Whenever I'm doing persuasion, convincing, psychology hacks, or any of that fun stuff, that is a bug, not a feature of sales. This is a very liberating thing to like embrace. And so that's how I changed my mind about sales. Now, how do you start having conversations with potential customers? Up here is my actual outbound message. And what I've found is just saying something very simple, like, hey, I'm cool, you're cool, let's talk. Mine is, hey, I'm a fellow at Harvard doing something like Cursor for cloud infrastructure, love to get your brutally honest take on it, down to chat. One message I send, 30-something% response rate, like, works quite well. Okay, and that's how you get enough people to talk to you. The Snoop Dogg is on this slide. One of the startups that I advise, they were invested in by Snoop Dogg, and their outreach message read like they copped it from like a 2017 HubSpot blog post. It was just like a bunch of nonsense. Just, dear sir or madam, do you have these kinds of pain points? We would love to chat. Turns out they were invested in by Snoop Dogg, so they changed their outreach message to say, hey, Snoop Dogg invested in us. Thought you might find it interesting too. Would you be open to chat? And guess what the response rate was? Like 100%, because who wouldn't respond to that? That's really cool. So, we've talked about how to think about sales. We've talked about how to get people to talk to you. Again, outbounds, very, very straightforward. Let's talk about the structure of a sales call. The structure of a sales call is quite simple, right? First part is just figuring out what is their pull. What is the thing that they are trying to accomplish on their to-do list? Why this versus all the other things they could try to accomplish? What have they looked into? What have they tried? And why isn't that good enough? That's the first part of the call. The second part of the call is, okay, cool, here's what we offer. Does that fit? And then you just see what happens after that. Now, what I want to do is I want to give you a script that you can use to start a sales call. Often, sales calls go off the rails in the first 30 seconds. And so this script I have found to be extremely helpful. I'm going to walk through it step by step, verbatim what you should say. So, someone random comes into your Zoom room, says, hey, hi, you do niceties at the beginning. Then you say, okay, thank you so much for taking the call. I'm sure you're super busy, you get a ton of people messaging you all the time. You chose to take this call. I'm curious, why are you here? What were you hoping to get out of the call today? Usually what they will do, it's kind of 50-50, but half the time they will fill out the pull framework for you in their description. Then you just kind of build off of that. Whatever they say, you then say, great, that's exactly what I was thinking we would cover today. Before we get there, do you mind if I ask you a few questions to get to know you better or whatever there? Right? This opens the space for you to be able to ask them a couple of questions that don't feel like an interrogation, which is what most sales calls feels like in the beginning. And it's super comfortable. And then your job is to ask a couple of questions after that to fill out the pull framework, right? Depending on what they've said before, but here's a couple of questions that you can ask that are generally helpful here. So, what are you prioritizing right now on your to-do list as it relates to whatever you're building? Next question, you can guess what it is. Why that versus anything else you could possibly be focused on? What options have you looked into, and why aren't your current options good enough? I promise, this is not rocket science. Once you start doing this, people will start explaining this back to you and be like, okay, cool. Based on that, it sounds like you're looking for something that can help you do this without this. Is that right? Okay, well, that's what we offer. Here's our product. Then after that comes your pitch, right? As I just mentioned. Okay, it sounds like you're looking for something that can help you accomplish X without Y. This is what we offer. Is that what you're looking for? Here, there is no persuasion, right? What I typically see in startups sales decks and pitches is you have this slide called a problem slide that goes into, you say, climate change is a $30 trillion problem, and da-da-da-da-da, and the market size is this big. And the potential customer at this point is what the hell am I? Yeah, I get it, this is interesting, but I'm trying to accomplish something in my job. And so you don't need to evangelize the problem. You don't need to educate. There's no education necessary here. It's literally, you are trying to accomplish this, blocked for this reason. Here's what we offer that unblocks you. Does that fit what you are looking for? And then they'll have some extra questions, and you can go into maybe a short demo or whatever. But it really is this simple. Everything else out there, I've actually watched a lot of sales calls. It's interesting, where when you have these kind of long explanations of the reason why you're building this product and the huge market size, what that actually winds up doing is it winds up convincing people not to buy, who are good fit customers. Instead, if you just narrow the scope of what you're selling and say, okay, we offer something that will unblock you, that's exactly what they're looking for, and they can buy it easily. The more surface area you give them, the more surface area they can object to. So what I literally do after this is I've created a Miro board where I put in every single call, record every call. I use a tool called Fathom, which is a free note taker. You can use whatever you want. But I record every single call, and then I review each of them, usually in batches of 5. So I start with a hypothesis. I think this person is going to pull, and so I'm going to do some outreach, schedule a bunch of conversations, and then I just go back and say, okay, did they actually try to pull? And was the problem that they didn't have this on their to-do list? Was the problem that I didn't describe it well? Or what was going on there? And you can see over time, there's green, yellow, red, super complicated way to classify this. You can see over time that the goal is to get more things green and change who you're targeting, what you're describing it as in this process, right? The categories are, did they have pull? Did what we offer fit? Did they try to buy? And so what? What do I do next? So, zooming out, all you need here is one pull, right, project on to-do list that they are trying to accomplish but blocked, that a lot of people have. It's kind of repeatable, and supply that you offer that fits that demand. Combining these two things you can think of as a case study, right? Like this person, you know, a case study on like a website, right? Like this person was trying to accomplish this, they were blocked for this reason, we offered this, and they were unblocked and were able to accomplish this. That's a case study. We can think of a startup as just something that builds case studies. We just produce case studies. We kind of repeat one single customer case study. Very much narrows the scope of what matters. And so all we have to do is figure out our case study. That's where the idea and the validation piece is. And then just repeat it a bunch of times. And one case study got my friends from 0 to 20 million ARR in 18 months, but can get you to 1 million ARR, can get you to 10 million, get you 100 million ARR. I've seen a lot of companies that are just repeating one case study, and that's all their business does. So, zooming out, realizing I ran through this, but hopefully this is helpful. What I've found is that startups are very, very hard for reasons of us being focused on the product we want to build, the vision that we have for how the world should work, all of this very kind of like self-centered things. When you think about the framework, the pull framework, what are we really doing here? We're really figuring out how customers want to be served. And that's the point of the thing, right? The whole point of this is that our job is to find one kind of customer who's trying to accomplish something in their lives and serve them in a meaningful way. Everything gets simpler. You kind of can throw your vision, you can put your vision in a jar on the side, it's fine. You can think about the market size, you can think about what VCs care about, like who cares? It's still really, really hard in this case, but it's less impossible once you're focused purely on serving customers and making magical things happen for them and repeating this one awesome case study. And that happens to also be the whole reason we're on this earth. So that's really cool. So that's what I got. Thank you all for your time. Hope this was helpful.